the most important question in the house. He's so awesome. Y'all won't call him that you need him. He can give me every time. Throw that blessing on you. Yeah, that's right. 14:50 a.m. the heart of Richmond. Chickens wait for the 4 o'clock hour. Coming out at 4 o'clock will be the inspirational ministry book club with Alicia. Her special guest today will be Stacey Thomas. She wrote a book called Sins of the Flesh. You're listening to 14:50 a.m. We're broadcasting live from the ground. And I have a guest in the house with me today. And we have an election coming up in November. November 5th.
Yeah, election is November the 5th.
We have an election November the 5th, and we get a chance to elect our next sheriff for the city of Richmond. And right now, they have 4 people running to be the next sheriff. And I have Chris Dorsey in the house. And my question to him, he's a white man, y'all. He's the only white man running in the race.
So, brother.
And I want to find out how you going to handle 900 black guys locked behind bars that are mad, upset because they're in jail. How you going to handle 900 black folk?
Well, first of all, thank you as always for having me on, Mr. Brown. This is the only radio station in Richmond where people actually speak the truth and are allowed to say relevant things. So first of all, there are a number of people in the jail. There's usually between 1,400 and 1,600 people in the Richmond City Jail.
But the jail don't supposed to hold that many.
Exactly. The jail was built to hold 880 people, and it now
Where are they
has...
sleeping at?
Well, that's a good question. There are inhumane conditions in that jail that violate the 8th Amendment to the Constitution and a number of other, statutory state and federal codes. First of all, I think things are going to change drastically when I am sheriff. We're not going to have, as you said, 900, people behind bars. We're going to have a lot less. And I think the makeup of the jail...
How are you going to have a lot less?
Well, we're going to stop arresting people for simple possession of cannabis, or driving on a suspended license, or not being able to pay a fee and therefore remaining in jail and getting stuck in the system. We're not going to do that anymore. We're only going to incarcerate people who actually violate the law. So I think that there might be a lot more white people in this jail that I run than there will be now, because we're going to arrest the bankers and we're going to arrest the government officials. We're not going to arrest people for...
White folk ain't going to vote for you talking like that.
Well, whoever's going to vote for me is the person who's against corruption. So whether they're white or black or yellow or brown, they're going to vote for me because they're against corruption, not because of the...
Do you think there's corruption in the government?
I know that there is nearly 100% corruption in the government, and there's only levels of non-corruption for plausible deniability. Our government is completely corrupt.
Well, why do you think people don't speak? Well, not people, but why do our elected officials don't speak or tell about the corruption that they see being that they're doing?
Because they're just a part of the whole scam. I mean, the politicians, they're legislatures, but the corruption, it's covered up by the media. It's covered up by the newspaper.
It's covered up.
Well, you're not really controlled, and that's why we said at the beginning of the conversation, this is the only place where people will have relevant conversations about what's going on.
Now, do you think it's fair that the city of Richmond is building a brand new jail and then get minority contractors to be part of the construction of a brand new jail.
Well, I don't think anything that the government does is fair, and that's why I say the government is completely corrupt, and I provide evidence of this. And there's really no arguments against, the evidence that I've found and smarter people than myself have displayed to me. But what I'm saying is, when we're closing down schools in the city of Richmond, why is it that the biggest construction project in the history of the city goes to build a jail? Instead of educating people, the government of the city of Richmond is much more interested in incarcerating and locking people up. So I am the exact opposite. I'm much more interested in educating people, making people's lives better, rather than locking people up for any excuse possible. So we already have an overcrowded jail. It's already filled beyond capacity, so why build a bigger jail? All these other candidates, they run the other direction when they see me coming. They will never face me. I don't know how these people think that they can be sheriff of Richmond if they're afraid to talk about the United States Constitution and their complicity in violations of the United States Constitution.
And how are you going to deal with a judge giving somebody some time and then send them to the jail to you to hold? What you going to say?
We won't hold them. We won't hold them. We'll release them. I will swear an oath. I will swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States.
That's right.
I will swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And if somebody is locked up for driving on a suspended license, that's not a violation of the Constitution.
That's right.
And it does violate the 8th Amendment if the only thing keeping somebody in jail is their inability to pay a fine to get out.
So if you go to court and the judge convicts you of drunk driving and say, I'm going to give you 90 days, then when the paddy wagon comes from the courthouse to the city jail, what are you going to do?
We're going to give everyone a jury trial, so things aren't going to go exactly the way they go now. For example,
they had the wrong people on the jury like they did Trayvon Martin.
Well, what I'm saying is, the Trayvon Martin trial, I have a lot of questions about the legitimacy of that trial. But what I'm saying is, the sheriff's office, they're the ones that run the jail. They're the ones that lock people up. So all I can do is what I can do, and that's uphold the Constitution of the United States. And if a judge violates the Constitution of the United States and unlawfully convicts someone to jail, then I will not abide by that system. The buck stops with the top constitutional officer in the city, and that's the sheriff of Richmond.
So the sheriff can put a person on work release if he wants to.
Well, the sheriff can do lots more than just that. The sheriff is the top constitutional officer in the city. That means the sheriff is the top law enforcement officer in the city. And no one is above the sheriff as far as enforcing the law. And what I comprehend about the law is in redundancy in the United States and Virginia constitutions, it says all power is vested and derived from the people. So do we have all power vested and derived in the people now, Mr. Brown?
This is what I'm trying to find out.
Do we have any power vested and derived in the people? No, we don't.
Sheriff, if a judge sends someone to the jail, is it an option of the judge or the sheriff to put them on work release?
That will depend on the situation that comes at hand. But what I am sure of, and I have copies of this you can find up on the internet, of my legal standing over top the 4th District Court of Appeals, and that's signed by federal Judge John Gibney. I'm confident in my legal standing above the federal court in the city of Richmond, and we have documentation of that. And what I know is I know and comprehend the law. And just because judges, corrupt politicians like Mike Herring, and corrupt police officials don't comprehend the law, that's not going to stop me from enforcing it.
So you're going to be a dangerous sheriff.
That's right.
I will only be dangerous to those who violate the law and commit treason against the people of the United States and the United States Constitution.
So if you see a judge and you feel that the judge is not doing his duty, because a lot of times when a black person goes in front of a judge, they'll get 10 years, and a white person in front of the judge, they get probation on
30 days, plea bargain.
Not anymore.
So if you see a judge giving more time to black youth, and you don't feel that the judge is giving the necessary time that it should have given less time, what would you do as a sheriff?
I would begin an investigation, and I would enforce the law. If that is in fact the case, then that judge will go to jail.
That's right. They can be found
because that's a
guilty
violation of the Constitution as well. It says equal protection under the law in the 14th Amendment. So if somebody's not giving equal protection under the law, that's a violation of the Constitution. That's a violation of Article 3 of the Constitution.
So would you, some of the inmates that are there now, would you be letting inmates out?
If they're in for non-violent drug charges, they will be released immediately. The war on drugs will cease. The war on drugs will end. The war on drugs is controlled by the institutions that control the United States government. For example, the United States military guards the poppy plants in Afghanistan, the Central Intelligence Agency, exports the heroin, and the FBI and the ATF and the DEA distribute it onto the streets. The same goes with Colombia and cocaine.
So what you saying that when you become sheriff, the first thing you're going to do is look at all the inmates in the jail.
That's right.
And the ones that don't need to be in jail,
that's right.
you're going to release.
Hallelujah.
We're going to do a lot of things at the same time. And another thing we're going to do is we're going to enforce Title 31 of U.S. Code, which calls for a yearly audit of the Federal Reserve banking system. We're going to hold accountable everyone who's violated the Constitution, and that includes central bankers in this town. It includes people like Eric Cantor, who are guilty of treason for his service to America's enemies and his dual citizenship with the State of Israel. And we're going to hold accountable the corrupt minions of these people who run the city government. Jeff Lacker, he's top on the list. He's head of the Richmond Federal Reserve Bank.
Since you said so many corrupt, are there any honest people down there that we can trust? Do you have? Can you name a couple that you feel that
there have been elected officials who have endorsed me, and I will let that be known on Wednesday.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say to the listeners today?
Again, I mean, I keep calling out my opponents in the race, and I, put it up on their Facebook pages. I ask them nicely to debate me anytime that they want. I've been attacked by C.T. Woody's students. I think he's confused about who he's dealing with.
Yeah, attacked.
But basically, if you go to RBA 4, the number 4 peace on YouTube, you'll see lots of videos with me asking C.T. Woody questions about his violations of the law, going into detail about how C.T. Woody has violated the Constitution, and sometimes at the end he got annoyed, and I think he...
Well, in November his job is up.
Oh yeah, he's not going to be around, but I'm just going to expose him. And again, C.T. Woody is guilty of crimes. I'm not just planning on beating him in the election. He needs to go to jail. He's responsible for a number of deaths. And he's cost the taxpayers of Richmond millions and millions of dollars.
What kind of death?
Well, he's been found guilty in a number of wrongful death suits where he is
in jail.
At the jail. I mean,
people dying. And they getting paid.
Many people are dying in the jail, and they're dying as a result of violations of Amendment 8 to the United States Constitution. That's a crime. The FBI is covering this up. The state police are covering this up. Of course, the sheriff's department, the DOC, is covering this up. But all these people, they're guilty of the same crimes. They're going to be subject to the same punishment.
That's right.
You can lock up a lot of people.
That's right.
We're going to lock up a lot less people. We're just going to lock up the correct people. We're going to lock up the most corrupt people. We're going to lock up the people who run this criminal government.
Are you a Democrat, Republican?
I am a member of the Democratic Committee. I am the longest-standing member of the Democratic Committee who's running in this race. C.T. Woody is not a legitimate member of the Democratic Committee. C.T. Woody has violated the only rules that would prohibit him from being a member of the Democratic Committee, and that's running against multiple members of the Democratic Committee. He didn't even join the Democratic Committee until after he won the Democratic primary in the last election against Antoinette Irving. So when he actually was unlawfully, illegally put onto the committee, that was a violation of law. But the same goes to Mike Herring and the Democratic committee in this town, as you know, and I have documentation of a lot of this. They don't. The word Democrat and Republican, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a sham. It's just something that people put in front of their names because the people I know in the Democratic Committee that run the Democratic Committee, Jim Nachman, J.J. Minor, Mike Brown, J.C. Wilmore, who attempted to kill me in front of the SunTrust building. There's police records of this. What I'm saying is that these people are undemocratic. They are only servants of their banking masters, and they are crooks. They're criminals.
What I want you to do right now, I want you to invite Wednesday at 12:30. You can do an invitation to your opponents in the race that you're going to be on WCLM Radio Wednesday at 12:30, and you're welcome to come.
You are all welcome to come. You all received a memorandum Friday night. You all heard about this well before you received that memorandum. Don't pretend like you don't hear what's going on. You're being called out. You're guilty of a bunch of crimes. You're a servant of the system, and you need to be exposed. Come talk about the United States Constitution. Stop being afraid. You know, you'll just be exposed. If you play ball, then you won't end up in jail, but I think it's too late for UCT, Woody. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do.
Come on.
The views and the comments you have just heard
That's right.
are the views and comments of candidate Chris Dorsey.
That's right.
Not necessarily the comments and views of Famous Brown Restaurant,
That's
WCLM
right.
Radio, or anybody connected with it. These
That's
are his
right.
strict views.
When I speak, I'm speaking, and when you speak, you're speaking.
That's right.
So there's my declaration of what's happening. I have free will.
And let everybody know that C.G. Woody have an opportunity to come and do the same thing.
That's right.
Lamont Kizzy and Mr. Irvin. If you want to come out and speak, you got the same opportunity. And all you got to do is let me know when, and we'll make how to do it. So,
Oh, I'd like to say one thing.
yes, ma'am.
Stop the suckers from pulling down the signs. Pulling down the signs are not going to make you win. Pulling down your opponent's sign, you
They say that
losers.
they're pulling down his sign. Stop pulling down his sign. Play fair.
Every sign
And
you
the fair
tell
way to
them, we're
do
going
it
to get
is all
5,000
four of y'all
votes.
sit at a table
They scared.
and speak
They
and
scared.
take questions from the audience.
They scared.
And that's the fair way to do it. So this has been Famous Brown, and Famous Brown coming up at 4:30. Felicia is here with Inspirational Ministry
All
Book
right,
Club.
child.
And we'll be right back in a few minutes.
All right, child. That's a